This is Booked for Drama, where stories burn, hearts break, the tea is always hot and never a part 2. Today we're diving into the game shut down before I could say bye to the boss. Now he's turned dark and come after me in the real world. Let's go. Chapter 1. Everyone else was scrambling to sell their accounts, but there I was, staying up all night, saying my goodbyes to the NPCs. People joked that I'd lost it treating NPCs like actual people. Then the day came. The game's dungeons merged with the real world, and those so-called NPCs became the ultimate bosses in reality. While everyone else was running for their lives, I was sitting in my yard, fishing and enjoying a hot pot. Bosses? What bosses? Those are my buddies. The news hit like a bombshell. Sword World, the game that had taken the world by storm, was shutting down in 24 hours. The moment the announcement dropped, players everywhere rushed to sell their accounts. My roommate Sarah was no different. You should sell yours too, she urged. Might as well make some money back while you still can. But I couldn't do it. This wasn't just a game account to me. It was a reminder of what I'd been through, a source of comfort during my hardest years. To me, everything is priceless. When Sarah suggested we sell our accounts together as a bundle, I politely turned her down and logged into the game by myself. If this was the end, I wanted to say goodbye properly. After all, this game had been with me for 5 long, difficult years. I followed my usual routine. I harvested the vegetables in my little virtual garden, tidied up, and got everything in order. Then, I set off to visit the NPCs one last time. I spent every last coin in my account. I bought the stable boy his favorite pastries, picked out the perfect calligraphy set for the schoolteacher, and got the beggar by the city gates a new pair of straw sandals. One by one, I visited them all, bringing gifts and watching as they broke into their familiar smiles. "Thank you, hero," they said, cheerful as always. I couldn't help but smile back. "Goodbye," I whispered to the screen. "I don't think we'll meet again, but I hope you'll be okay. Take care of yourselves." Behind me, Sarah let out a loud snort. "Are you serious?" she said, rolling her eyes. "They're just a bunch of lines of code. The moment the servers shut down, they'll get deleted in an instant." "Take care of themselves? You're acting like they're real people." I stayed quiet, but her mocking tone grated on me. "You've totally lost it," she continued, laughing. "Calling NPCs your friends. You need help. Like, actual help. Maybe I should tell someone get you checked out or something." Then she reached for my phone. "Come on, stop being ridiculous. Just sell your account already. If we sell ours together, we'll get way more money." I shoved her hand away. I said no, Sarah. My voice was steady, but my patience was wearing thin. "And for the record," I added, staring her down, "friends are the ones who bring you comfort and joy. These NPCs did that for me when no one else did. So yeah, they're my friends. Deal with it." As we argued, the clock quietly struck midnight. I glanced at my phone, and my heart sank. The game had logged me out. The servers were officially shut down. No more Sword World, no more NPCs, and worst of all, I hadn't made it to Michael. Michael the sensitive one, the one who'd probably take it the hardest if I disappeared without saying goodbye. I stared at the blank screen, guilt gnawing at me. But it didn't matter now. Sword World was gone, and there was nothing I could do. Chapter 2. The day Sword World shut down, the wind outside was ferocious. I watched from the dorm window as a convenience store's patio umbrella, base and all, was ripped off the ground and sent flying several meters down the street. The store clerk ran out, trying to grab it, but the wind shoved him back like a toy. Every news channel was looping coverage of the global storm. Experts took turns sharing their theories, but no one could explain it. Some people online were even saying it was the end of the world. Meanwhile, I stared at the dwindling food stash in our dorm room. The storm showed no signs of stopping, and I was running out of options. My supplies wouldn't last past tonight. Sarah, my roommate, didn't seem worried at all. She leaned back in her chair, scrolling through her phone. "Told you should have sold your account when you had the chance." She smirked. "I got a cool 80 grand for mine. Once the money's in my account, I'll be swimming in takeout even if delivery fees shoot up to $100. She shot me a glance. You're on your own. Hope you enjoy starving." I ignored her. There was no point arguing. She clearly didn't realize that no one in their right mind would drop that kind of money on a game account after the servers shut down. It was almost definitely a scam. I got up, heading toward the bathroom to wash up when something strange happened. A cold, robotic voice echoed through the room. "Sword World dungeon successfully initialized. First mission. Find Coca's favorite item near the village entrance. Time limit, 24 hours. Failure will result in erasure. I froze. Coco? I whispered. Sarah, on the other hand, rolled her eyes. What the hell? A mission? Who's pulling this dumb prank? I wasn't sure what to say. Coco was a name I knew. She was an NPC in Sword World. The granddaughter of the beginner village chief. A sweet little girl who loved playing hide and seek by the creek near the village gates. But this couldn't be real. It had to be some weird coincidence. Before I could think further, there was a loud, frantic knock at the door. Sarah sighed dramatically and stomped over to open it. Who is it? Standing there was Jessica, another girl from our dorm. She looked awful. Her clothes were torn, and she was covered in blood. She wobbled unsteadily, clutching the doorframe for support. Help me, she gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. Then, before we could react, she collapsed, hitting the floor with a sickening thud. Behind her, standing in the hallway, was a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 6 or 7, with twin pigtails and a lollipop in her hand. She swayed slightly as she stared at us, her big, round eyes sparkling with an eerie light. Then she smiled. Big sister, she said sweetly, tilting her head. Did you find my favorite thing yet? Sarah jumped back in shock. What the where did this creepy kid come from? Hey, where are your parents? I couldn't move. I couldn't even speak. The girl's face, her outfit, her voice, it was exactly like Coco. The Sword World NPC. Down to the last detail. My stomach twisted into knots. This couldn't be real. There was no way someone could look exactly like an NPC from a video game. I took a step back, my mind racing. But as I moved, something cold brushed against my leg. The chill shot through me like ice water. I looked down. Jessica. She was lying there, motionless. Her skin was pale, her lips blue. I crouched down, reaching out with trembling hands, and froze when I touched her. She was ice cold. Her entire body felt like it had been pulled out of a freezer. I scrambled backward, panic rising in my chest. She's gone. Sarah turned to glare at me, annoyed. What the hell are you talking about? Gone? Are you losing it? Before I could respond, the TV, my phone, Sarah's laptop, every screen in the room suddenly flickered and changed to the same broadcast. A news anchor appeared on the screen, pale and visibly shaken. This is an emergency announcement, they began, their voice tense. After thorough investigation, experts have confirmed that the recent global anomalies are linked to a martial arts game called Sword World. I felt my blood run cold. The anchor continued, their tone growing more urgent. We are now asking anyone familiar with this game to come forward and provide information. If you encounter anyone resembling NPCs from the game, do not engage with them. Avoid contact at all costs. Do not speak to them, and leave the area immediately. They paused, their eyes darting nervously off camera. Then, in a lower voice, they added, if you must interact with them, answer their questions carefully. Incorrect answers may result in. The broadcast repeated the warning, hammering it into viewers' heads. Do not engage with NPCs. Do not make eye contact. Answer questions with extreme caution. Then, the screen cut to a slideshow of game NPCs. Chapter 3. No way, this has to be some kind of joke. There's no way the game's NPCs are actually real. Sarah stared in disbelief, her eyes darting back and forth between the computer screen and the little girl standing in front of us. Meanwhile, Coco stood there smiling sweetly, looking for all the world like a perfectly normal kid. Big sister, she said, tilting her head innocently. Did you find Coco's favorite thing yet? It's getting late, and Coco needs to go home. Hurry and tell me, okay? My hands started to tremble, not from fear, but from excitement. I thought I'd never see them again, the friends who had been with me through the hardest 5 years of my life. When Sword World shut down, it felt like losing a piece of myself. All the people, the stories, the memories I'd poured my heart into, they were gone in an instant. All I could do was sit by helplessly as years of effort disappeared overnight. I remember the shock when I first heard the news. It was like my blood had turned to ice. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head, I couldn't stop panicking over what life might be like without them. But now they are back. Sure, the situation was strange, terrifying, even, but I couldn't help feeling a spark of joy. Sarah's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. Who the hell knows what she likes, she said, glaring at Coco. She's just some random NPC from the beginner's village. She barely even has a role in the game. Then Sarah's expression shifted. Her eyes lit up with an idea, and before I could react, she grabbed my arm and shoved me forward. She knows, Sarah blurted out, pointing at me. Ask her. She can tell you. And then, without a second's hesitation, Sarah slammed the dorm door shut behind me. Through the small glass window in the door, could see her smirking at me. I'm not perishing for this, she said with a cruel grin. If anyone's meeting their end because of this eerie little creature, it's you. She gave me a mocking wave. Besides, isn't this your thing? You're always obsessing over NPCs and their stories. Time to put all that research to good use. Go on, Betty, this is your big moment. Her voice was dripping with malice, the same condescending tone she'd used so many times before. It was just like the way she'd told everyone I was crazy for treating NPCs like real people, the way she'd turned the entire class against me. Fine, Sarah, if this is how you want to play, I'll play too. I turned to Coco, forcing myself to stay calm. Coco, I said gently, I know what your favorite thing is. But after I tell you, can you promise me something? She blinked, tilting her head curiously. What is it, big sister? You have to ask that big sister, too, I said, nodding toward Sarah through the window. She really wants to answer your question as well. Coco's eyes lit up. Oh, does that big sister want to play with me, too? Okay, but you have to go first. Once you tell me, I'll ask her next. Behind the door, Sarah's smirk vanished. Her expression twisted into panic as she realized what I was doing. She started banging on the door with her fists. Betty, you bitch, you're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Just answer her question and get it over with. She was practically screaming now. You're gonna get me in serious trouble. Darn it, Betty. I ignored her. Leaning down, I whispered into Coco's ear, my voice low enough that only she could hear. Coco loves the butcher's big cleaver, doesn't she? For a moment, Coco's eyes gleamed with something sharp and unnatural. Then, she let out a soft giggle. Wow, big sister, you really know a lot, she said, clapping her hands together. Behind the door, Sarah's banging grew even louder. What did you tell her? She shouted, her voice cracking. Betty, what the hell did you say? You can't just leave me hanging like this. She sounded frantic now, her words tumbling over each other. We're roommates. You can't just let me go. Help me. But before I could respond, Coco's cheerful voice cut through the chaos. But you got it wrong. What? I froze. Sarah stopped yelling. For a moment, everything was silent. She let out a cold laugh, her voice dripping with disdain. Wow, and here I thought you were actually good at something. Typical Betty, useless and weird. You couldn't level up properly, you were trash at dungeons, and now you can't even figure out a low-level NPC. Pathetic. Her smirk deepened as she delivered the final blow. People like you antisocial losers living in your little fantasy worlds aren't good for anything. Why don't you just do everyone a favor and disappear already? A sudden chill shot up from the ground, snapping me out of my thoughts. Startled, I looked down to see an icy column snaking its way up my legs, frost spreading fast. Within seconds, my legs were frozen solid below the knees, sharp crystals glinting in the light. This skill, I knew it. There was no mistake. It had to be her, the mischievous Coco from the beginner village in Sword World. Coco, I shouted, panic slipping into my voice. Are you acting up again? Her head tilted slightly, her big, round eyes blinking at me in confusion. Didn't I just tell you last night to behave and listen to your grandpa? What, you forgot already? If you keep this up, I'm not bringing you any more pork floss buns. Her expression froze. She stared at me, wide-eyed, as if trying to process what I'd just said. Who are you? She asked, her voice soft and hesitant. I crossed my arms, lifting my chin. What, you don't recognize me anymore? Oh, Coco, you're in big trouble now. I'm never helping you steal the butcher's cleaver again. Her eyes widened and then sparkled with sudden recognition. In an instant, she cancelled the skill and ran toward me, throwing herself into my arms. It's you, Mr. Handsome. Coco finally found you. She hugged me tightly, burying her face in my chest, her voice trembling with excitement. You don't know how much Coco missed you. Coco waited and waited, but you never came back to visit. I patted her head gently, trying to suppress a smile. But then she pulled back slightly, her innocent eyes scanning me from head to toe. Her brow furrowed in confusion. But, Mr. Handsome, why are you a girl now? Did you turn into a girl? Did you get a sex change? I froze, completely thrown off by her question. Her wide, curious eyes stared at me, waiting for an answer. I opened my mouth and then closed it again, unsure of what to say. God, why did I ever think it was a good idea to create a male character? Letting out an awkward laugh, I quickly changed the subject. Let's not focus on that right now. What I do want to know is why you lied earlier. I didn't get your question wrong, did I? Coco's smile faltered, Her eyes darkened slightly, and she lowered her head, her voice muffled as she spoke. I didn't lie, she said softly. You were right, that used to be my favorite thing. But it's not anymore. Before I could process what she meant, she suddenly looked up at me, her eyes blazing with anger. Miss Handsome, she shouted, pointing angrily toward the door where Sarah had locked herself in. It was her, wasn't it? She hurt you. She was mean to you, wasn't she? Her small hands clenched into fists. Don't worry, Coco will protect you. Coco will get off of her for you. Wait, Coco. But before I could stop her, dozens of thin, glimmering ice threads shot out from her hands, slicing through the air like needles. Sarah barely had time to react. She let out a choked scream, scrambling to run, but it was too late. The ice threads pierced through her body in an instant, blood splattering the walls as she collapsed to the floor. She didn't even have time to cry out. Her lifeless eyes stared blankly at the ceiling. Her body crumpled in a pool of red. Coco turned back to me, her face lighting up with pride. See, sister, aren't you happy now? I stared at Sarah's body, my chest tightening painfully. My breath caught in my throat. Coco, I said carefully, forcing myself to stay calm. You can't just go around harming people like that. You're still a kid, you don't understand. This world isn't like the one you came from. I crouched down to her level, trying to meet her gaze. When people go here, they don't come back. They're gone forever. Do you understand? Coco pouted, clearly unconcerned. But when she saw the seriousness in my expression, she hesitated and then reluctantly nodded. Okay, I'll listen to you, big sister. Before I could say anything else, the school's PA system cracked to life. This is an urgent broadcast. Attention, all students. Sword World NPC Michael is currently searching for a specific individual, a man in a black bathrobe, with multicolored hair, a passion for gardening, and a large red flower on his head. Anyone with information is requested to report to the nearest TV tower immediately. This is a priority alert. A significant reward will be given for any leads. I froze, staring at the speaker in disbelief. Seriously, Michael? Did you really have to describe my character in excruciating detail? I sighed heavily, grabbing Coco's hand. Come on, Coco. Michael's looking for me. Let's go find him. But before I could take a step, Coco tugged on my hand, refusing to move. Do we have to go? She asked, her voice small and hesitant. Can't we just stay here? Just you and me? Chapter 4. The group was still buzzing about the announcement, their voices overlapping in excitement. My uncle's in the military, one guy said, leaning forward as if sharing a secret. He just told me Michael's gone rogue. He's taken government officials hostage. What? Just to find that guy in black? Another chimed in, his eyes wide. Man, they're offering a huge reward for any leads. Like seriously, huge. You know what that means, right? Whoever finds him is set for life. Yeah, a third one said, puffing out his chest. That's gonna be me. I've been playing this game forever. Tracking someone down? Piece of cake, please. The first guy rolled his eyes. It's obvious who Michael's after. It's gotta be Daniel. Who else could it be? That finally did it. I couldn't hold back a laugh. They all turned to stare at me, their conversation grinding to a halt. John, the ringleader of the group, narrowed his eyes. What's so funny? When he realized it was me, his lips twisted into a sneer. Oh, look who decided to crawl out of her little hole. The dorm mouse herself. His cronies burst into laughter, feeding off his energy. What's wrong, mouse? John taunted. You hear about the reward and suddenly think you've got a shot? You, of all people? The laughter cut deeper than I'd expected. It wasn't the first time they'd mocked me, and it wouldn't be the last. They never hit or shoved or did anything physical, they were too smart for that. But their words? They were like tiny needles, sharp and relentless, leaving bruises no one else could see. If I complained, they'd shrug it off as a joke. You're too sensitive, they'd say. We're just messing around. But there was nothing funny about how cold their words made me feel, like they were stripping away every layer of protection I had. My hands started trembling, and Coco, who was holding on to me, noticed immediately. Her grip tightened, and for a brief moment, I saw something dark flash in her eyes. She tried to pull away, instinctively stepping toward them, but I quickly held her back, shielding her behind me. Hey, I said softly, crouching down to her level. Be good, okay? Don't get into trouble. These people aren't worth it. Standing back up, I forced myself to meet John's smug gaze. I'm laughing, I said, keeping my voice calm, because you're clearly clueless. Daniel? He wears white. Always. Everyone knows he hates black clothes. I crossed my arms, tilting my head like I was sizing him up. You've been playing this, you've been doing all this time? Oh, wait, I know. You've been too busy following Sarah around, acting like her little lapdog. The smirk vanished from his face. His fists clenched tightly at his sides, and his glare could have set something on fire. Shut up, he snapped. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, don't I? I shot back, my voice dripping with mockery. Then let me remind you. February 1st you took Sarah to Whitewater. You bought her 3 outfits and handed her $500. She said thank you, sure, but the second you left, she put on one of those outfits, gave another to her real crush, and spent the rest of the day shooting fireworks with him. Wearing matching clothes, all on your dime. His face turned bright red, his jaw tightening as if he were about to snap. Before he could even come up with a response, Coco couldn't help herself anymore. She peeked out from behind me, grinning like she was about to deal the final blow. Oh, and don't forget January 29th, she chirped. Or Christmas. Should I keep going? Enough. John roared, his voice echoing down the hallway. He took a step forward, pointing a shaking finger at Coco. Shut your mouth, you little brat. He lunged toward her, but I quickly stepped in front of him, spreading my arms wide. What the hell are you doing? I snapped, my voice sharp and steady. You're really going to go after a kid now? Seriously? John's eyes blazed with fury as he turned his attention back to me. Betty, he growled, his voice low and dangerous. You think you're so clever, don't you? You bring this little rat here to make me look bad, huh? He sneered, gesturing toward Coco. Look at her dressed in rags, just like you. A big rat and a little rat. What a perfect pair. Don't you dare talk about Miss Handsome like that. Yeah, don't you dare insult Coco. Coco and I shouted at the same time, our voices overlapping in perfect sync. For a split second, John looked startled. Then he laughed a cruel, mocking sound that made my skin crawl. Wow, he said, shaking his head. A rat protecting a rat. What are you gonna do, huh? You think you can stop me? He looked around at the other students lingering nearby, all of them pretending not to notice what was happening. Look around, he said, his voice rising. Do you see anyone here who cares about you? Anyone who's gonna stand up for you? He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low growl. Face it, even if I beat the crap out of both of you right now, no one's going to stop me. Then, as if to prove his point, he pulled a thick iron rod out of his bag. The sight of it made my stomach drop. Then, as if to prove his point, he pulled a thick iron rod out of his bag. The sight of it made my stomach drop. Let's see your so-called friends now, he sneered, gripping the rod tightly. Go ahead, call those stupid NPCs you're always talking about. Let's see if they come to save you. With that, he swung the rod, putting his whole body into it. The air whistled as it sliced through the space between us. I didn't even think. I grabbed Coco, pulling her into my arms as I crouched down, covering her with my body. My hands flew to the back of my head, bracing for the impact. But the blow never came. Chapter 5. Get Lost. The voice was low and familiar, carrying an edge that sent a chill through the air. I looked up, startled. The crowd that had just been circling me was now scattered, split neatly into 2 groups on either side of the hallway. The division couldn't have been more striking. One half was a frozen wasteland, the floor and walls coated in a thick layer of ice. The other half was shrouded in swirling black smoke, dark and suffocating. The sheer power radiating from it was terrifying. See, Ms. Handsome, didn't I tell you? Coco can protect you now. Coco peeked out from behind me, flashing me an innocent smile as if she hadn't just scared the living daylights out of everyone in the hallway. Her small hands glowed faintly with an eerie blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. This is your idea of protection? A sharp, sarcastic voice came from behind me. If I'd shown up even a second later, that iron rod would have smashed down on her. Coco frowned, crossing her arms with a huff. Who asked you to stick your nose in? I didn't need your help. Then she turned to me, her cheeky grin returning. I just wanted to enjoy being protected by Ms. Handsome for a little longer. You're so annoying, Michael. Michael. I whipped around, my heart skipping a beat. There he was, tall and imposing, dressed in sleek black from head to toe. His arms were crossed over his chest, his sharp features set in a look of mild disdain. A faint smirk played at the corner of his lips, but his dark eyes gleamed with something dangerous. It's really you, I blurted out, relief flooding through me. Michael, thank you for saving me. He scoffed, tilting his head slightly. Oh, so you do remember me. How touching. His voice was cold, but there was something teasing about the way he looked at me as if he wasn't sure whether to be annoyed or amused. You're the one who disappeared for ages, he continued, his tone sharper now. And before you left, you made sure to hand out gifts to everyone. Everyone except me. Guess he wasn't worth the effort, huh? His words stung, but I could tell he wasn't really angry. This was Michael. After all, he always had a way of making everything sound like both a joke and an accusation at the same time. Still, I wasn't about to let him hold this over me. That's not true, I protested, stepping closer. I did prepare something for you. It's just, something happened before I could give it to you. Don't be mad, I added quickly, trying to smooth things over. I swear, I made it myself, a set of clothes, actually. His expression shifted instantly, the smirk faded, and his eyes widened ever so slightly. A faint blush crept up his ears, though he tried to play it off by clearing his throat. You made it yourself? He asked, his voice unusually soft. Yeah, I said, nodding eagerly. I made it just for you. I know what it means to give someone handmade clothes. It's a way of saying they're really important to you, right? You're important to me, Michael. The blush deepened, spreading from his ears to his neck. For a moment, he looked almost vulnerable, his usual confidence slipping. But then I kept talking. And so is Coco, and Hebo, and everyone else. You're all so important to me. The warmth in his expression vanished instantly. Idiot, I pouted, crossing my arms. Why are you always calling me names? Behind me, I could hear Coco struggling to hold back her laughter, but she wasn't doing a very good job of it. Michael's gaze flicked to her, sharp as a knife. What's so funny? Have you finished the assignments I gave you? Or are you just running around causing trouble again? Coco's smug grin disappeared instantly. She shrank back behind me, her head hanging. Like a scolded puppy, I stepped in front of her, ready to defend her, but Michael didn't give me the chance to speak. And you, he snapped, his attention back on me now. His eyes narrowed as he gestured toward me. What's with the outfit? A grown man, prancing around in women's clothes. Do you have any idea how hard you made it for me to find you? He frowned, his annoyance palpable. You know I don't care that you're a man, right? His words caught me off guard, but his expression suddenly shifted again. His eyes darkened, a dangerous edge creeping into his voice. Or, he began slowly, his tone turning icy, are you dressed like this for someone else? Who is it, Daniel, or that pale little performer from the Flower District? As he spoke, his hand drifted to the hilt of his sword, his fingers resting on it lightly but purposefully. I swallowed hard. There was no doubt in my mind if I gave him a name, he'd march straight to their door and start swinging. And no, I stammered, forcing an awkward laugh. There's no one else, I swear. Have you ever considered, I might actually be a woman? Michael froze, blinking at me in confusion. You're a, what? He asked, his face a mixture of shock and disbelief. You're a woman? His voice grew louder as he started piecing things together. Wait a second, you mean to tell me, all those times you bathed with me? And all those late-night conversations, sitting together for hours? He stared at me, utterly dumbfounded. His hand trembled slightly as he pointed in my direction, his lips moving without managing to form a single word. I froze, suddenly feeling a little guilty. I mean, okay, sure I might have gotten a little too curious back then. But seriously, who wouldn't? 8-pack abs? A martial arts prodigy? Not to mention the whole, descended from a legendary family, thing? You can't just dangle all that in front of someone and expect them not to wonder. Besides, I worked really hard to raise his favorability points in the game. It wasn't like I could let all that effort go to waste. Thinking back on it now, I couldn't help but smirk. Totally worth it. You, he blurted, finally managing to speak. Yes, me, I said, blinking at him, feigning innocence. He pointed at himself next as if trying to connect the dots. A long, heavy silence followed before he let out a deep sigh, the kind that said, I give up. Fine, he muttered, as though he'd come to some life-altering conclusion. I'll take responsibility for this. What? My stomach twisted in confusion. He mumbled something after that, but his voice was so low. Take responsibility for what? I asked, leaning in closer. I couldn't make out a single. His head snapped up, his face red with embarrassment. Why are you asking so many questions? I blinked at him, confused, but before I could press further, he sighed again and waved his hand dismissively. Whatever. If you're a woman, so be it. At least that'll save me some trouble. That said, his expression darkened slightly. I'll need to revise my plans. What plans? I asked, tilting my head. He looked away, his voice a little quieter now. Marriage plans. Wait, what? I gasped. You heard me, he said, frowning as if I were the unreasonable one. I stared at him, completely lost. You're planning to get married? To whom? You never said anything about having feelings for someone. At this, his expression shifted to something between shock and betrayal. He stared at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. What do you mean by that? He demanded. Are you saying you don't want to marry me? What? My brain screeched to a halt. You've shared a bed with me, he continued, his voice raising a notch. We've bathed together. And now you're telling me you'd rather marry someone else? Who else could it possibly be? His words hit me like a lightning bolt. Shared a bed? Bathed together? Oh, no. He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about my game character. I mean, wait, hold on a second. Before I could explain, Coco popped her head out from behind me, her face bright with mischief. If bathing together means you have to get married, then I can marry Ms. Handsome too. She chirped, clapping her hands. What? Coco grinned, her eyes sparkling. Yep, I'm marrying Ms. Handsome. That way, we'll always be together. Michael's face was darkened by several shades. Without a word, he grabbed Coco and yanked her away from me. His jaw was tense, his eyes narrowing as he glared at me. Answer me, he growled. Exactly how many people have you bathed with? I froze, my mouth opening and closing like a fish. Wow, that's not an easy question to answer. Thinking fast, I took a step forward and grabbed both of their hands, squeezing tightly before Michael could press the issue. Let's not get distracted, okay? I said quickly. I have more important questions. How did you two even get here? And where have you been staying? The moment I asked, their expressions shifted. Michael's jaw tightened, and Coco's usual cheer disappeared entirely. She even shot him a glare, clearly upset about something. But neither of them answered. Instead, they both tightened their grip on my hands so much so that it actually started to hurt. Let's go home, Michael said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. Home? I echoed, confused. What do you mean, home? What are you even talking? Before I could get another word out, Michael stomped his foot lightly. The world around me spun. My stomach flipped, my vision blurred, and by the time the dizziness cleared, I found myself standing in a place that felt both familiar and strange. This is my house? I murmured, looking around in shock. No, not my house exactly, but the house from the game. My house. The one I'd spent hours customizing, down to the color of the roof tiles and the placement of the furniture. It was perfect. An exact replica in every way. The furniture, the garden, even the crops in the yard, they were all exactly the same as they were before the game shut down. Not just the layout but the tiny details. The height of the plants. The angle of each chair. How did you? This is insane. I said, turning to Michael in awe. He tilted his chin up slightly, clearly pleased with himself. It wasn't that hard. Then, with a softer tone, he added, if you want, you can live here. For as long as you like. I blinked, caught completely off guard. You always complained about how cramped your dorm was, he continued. I figured it must be miserable, living in a shoebox like that. So, now you can stay here instead. My chest tightened, a strange ache spreading through me. They'd been listening to me all this time. Not just hearing, but remembering. And not only that, they'd gone out of their way to solve the problem. I always told myself they were my friends, but sometimes I wondered if I was just being delusional, pouring so much affection into a world that wasn't real. But here, at this moment, I knew for sure, the love I gave them wasn't one-sided. Tears welled in my eyes before I could stop them, spilling down my cheeks. Michael froze, panic flashing across his face. Why are you crying? You always do this, crying alone over stupid things. Stop it already. Is it the house? He asked, his voice rising in alarm. If you don't like it, just say so. I'll change whatever you want. His frantic attempts to calm me down only made me cry harder. I'd never realized how overwhelming it could feel to be loved like this. Clearly at a loss, Michael clapped his hands together. Hey, look over there, just stop crying, okay? Look. I followed his finger, wiping my eyes as I turned. In the distance, I saw Richard waving at me, a grin on his face. Hey, over here, he called. Come get some candy, it's all yours. I couldn't help but laugh. Trust Richard to show up at the weirdest moment, looking like nothing had changed. I walked toward him, still sniffling, and took the candy he offered. It was sweet, melting on my tongue, but my attention was drawn elsewhere. Something on the hem of his shirt caught my eye, a dark patch of red tinged with black. It wasn't just a stain. It looked like blood, old blood, seeping out from within. Chapter 6. Before I could get another word out, Michael stomped his foot lightly. The world around me spun. My stomach flipped, my vision blurred, and by the time the dizziness cleared, I found myself standing in a place that felt both familiar and strange. This is my house? I murmured, looking around in shock. No, not my house exactly, but the house from the game. My house. The one I'd spent hours customizing, down to the color of the roof tiles and the placement of the furniture. It was perfect. An exact replica in every way. The furniture, the garden, even the crops in the yard, they were all exactly the same as they were before the game shut down. Not just the layout but the tiny details. The height of the plants. The angle of each chair. How did you? This is insane, I said, turning to Michael in awe. He tilted his chin up slightly, clearly pleased with himself. It wasn't that hard. Then, with a softer tone, he added, if you want, you can live here. For as long as you like. I blinked, caught completely off guard. You always complained about how cramped your dorm was, he continued. I figured it must be miserable, living in a shoebox like that. So, now you can stay here instead. My chest tightened, a strange ache spreading through me. They'd been listening to me all this time. Not just hearing, but remembering. And not only that, they'd gone out of their way to solve the problem. I always told myself they were my friends, but sometimes I wondered if I was just being delusional, pouring so much affection into a world that wasn't real. But here, at this moment, I knew for sure, the love I gave them wasn't one-sided. Tears welled in my eyes before I could stop them, spilling down my cheeks. Michael froze, panic flashing across his face. Why are you crying? You always do this, crying alone over stupid things. Stop it already. Is it the house? He asked, his voice rising in alarm. If you don't like it, just say so. I'll change whatever you want. His frantic attempts to calm me down only made me cry harder. I'd never realized how overwhelming it could feel to be loved like this. Clearly at a loss, Michael clapped his hands together. Hey, look over there, just stop crying, okay? Look. I followed his finger, wiping my eyes as I turned. In the distance, I saw Richard waving at me, a grin on his face. Hey, over here, he called. Come get some candy, it's all yours. I couldn't help but laugh. Trust Richard to show up at the weirdest moment, looking like nothing had changed. I walked toward him, still sniffling, and took the candy he offered. It was sweet, melting on my tongue, but my attention was drawn elsewhere. Something on the hem of his shirt caught my eye, a dark patch of red tinged with black. It wasn't just a stain. It looked like blood, old blood, seeping out from within. Chapter 7. Wait, was Richard hurt? I leaned in without thinking, trying to get a closer look at the dark stain on his clothes, but before I could figure it out, Coco popped up out of nowhere and grabbed my hand. Sis, I want candy, too. She chirped, tugging at me with an eager smile. I paused, confused. Why didn't she just ask Richard? But she looked so excited, I didn't think much of it and handed her a piece. By the time I turned back, Richard was gone. I frowned, glancing around. Where's Richard? Michael stepped forward, calm as ever. His hand rested lightly on my shoulder as he gently steered me toward the house. He's tired, Michael said smoothly, his tone as steady as it always was. He went to rest. It's getting late, we should eat. I hesitated, glancing back over my shoulder. Something about it felt off. How could Richard disappear so quickly if he was tired? Still, I didn't push it. The days blurred together after that. At first, being here was fun. Peaceful, even. But after a while, I started to feel restless. No phone, no internet, no TV, nothing to connect me to the outside world. It was just me, Michael, and Coco. Every day. Sure, they made it fun. Coco's endless energy kept things lively, and Michael always seemed to know how to keep the mood light, but something about it all felt strange. This morning, after breakfast, I finally said something. I think I want to go out for a bit. Coco froze mid-bite. Her chopsticks slipped from her hand, clattering onto the table. She looked up at me, her usual bright smile faltering just a little. Why would sis want to go out? She asked, her voice sing-song but a little too forced. Isn't it fun here with us? Before I could answer, she reached across the table and grabbed my hand, her crescent moon eyes sparkling as if nothing was wrong. How about this? Coco and sis can go fishing today. We can make a hot pot for dinner, okay? She was trying so hard to distract me, but my attention had already shifted. There was a fresh scratch on her chest, a thin, red line that definitely wasn't there yesterday. I frowned. Coco, what happened to your chest? Her eyes flicked away, and for the first time, I saw her hesitate. Oh, this, she said quickly, her voice just a little too high-pitched. It's nothing. I tripped and scratched myself, that's all. Before I could say anything, she suddenly pulled out a small bouquet of flowers from behind her back, holding them out to me with a bright, innocent grin. I picked these for you, sis. I got a little scratched up while I was gathering them, but it's fine, right? You're not mad, are you? She looked so sweet, so perfect. But I could feel it in my gut she was lying. I reached out and rested a hand on her head, my voice soft but firm. Coco, why are you lying to me? Her smile wavered, and she bit her lip, her gaze dropping to the floor. I'm not lying, sis. I'd never lie to you. My frown deepened. Still lying. No trip would leave a scratch like that. Coco, what aren't you telling me? Her whole body seemed to shrink under my gaze. She trembled, her eyes darting around as she stammered, I. Before she could finish, a hand reached out and pulled her behind him. Michael stepped between us, calm and composed as always. He handed me a cup of tea, his expression soft and reassuring. Don't worry about it, he said smoothly. Coco's just being her usual playful self. She didn't mean any harm. He sat down across from me, his voice casual as he continued. Yesterday, I gave her some homework wood carving practice. She must have dozed off while working on it and accidentally scratched herself. That's all. Coco peeked out from behind him, nodding vigorously. Yeah, that's it. I didn't want to tell sis because I was scared you'd scold me. I looked between the two of them, my suspicion lingering like a shadow. Really? Michael's gaze flicked to Coco, and for a brief moment, a faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Coco took a few steps forward, grabbing my hand tightly. It's true, sis. Don't you trust me? Michael? I turned my attention back to him. His face was as calm and steady as ever, his smile warm and reassuring. Michael never lied. He was the most honest person I knew. If he said it was nothing, then maybe I was just overthinking it. The tension in my chest eased, and I let out a soft sigh. All right, I'll believe you. Michael's smile widened just a little. Good. You've been stuck in this courtyard for too long. How about I take you out for a walk today? Really? My mood instantly lifted. Yes, let me grab my things. We hadn't even made it past the courtyard gate when a familiar voice called out to me. Hey, Ms. Handsome, you're here. I turned, startled, and saw a woman waving at me. Eliza, I started, but she cut me off with a bright smile. Ms. Handsome, back again, huh? I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Sword World was a high-freedom martial arts game designed to feel like a living, breathing world. The NPCs weren't just lifeless characters, they had personalities, routines, and L-driven dialogue that adapted to player behavior. Elizabeth, the woman standing in front of me, was one of them. In the game, she had several unique dialogue responses for different situations. She was dynamic and flexible, her reactions always felt real. But now, she sounded flat. Repetitive. It didn't make sense. Michael and Coco had become so much more than NPCs. They were practically alive, with their own thoughts, emotions, and awareness. So why did Elizabeth feel less? Something wasn't adding up. Elizabeth, did you forget to take your medicine again? Is your memory acting up? Elizabeth froze at my words. For a moment, her face was blank, like she was struggling to process what I'd said. Then, all at once, her expression cleared, and she nodded quickly as if a light bulb had gone off. Oh, that's right. I forgot to take it. Thank you, Michael, for reminding me. I glanced at Michael. He looked as composed as ever, the same calm, steady presence. Chapter 8. Elizabeth, did you forget to take your medicine again? Is your memory acting up? Elizabeth froze at my words. For a moment, her face was blank, like she was struggling to process what I'd said. Then, all at once, her expression cleared, and she nodded quickly as if a light bulb had gone off. Oh, that's right. I forgot to take it. Thank you, Michael, for reminding me. I glanced at Michael. He looked as composed as ever, the same calm, steady presence he always was. When he noticed me staring, he smiled faintly, tilting his head slightly. Something wrong? He asked. Let's go. But his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I shook my head, brushing past him. My chest tightened with unease as I strode forward and blocked Elizabeth's path. Elizabeth, I said, my tone sharper now, where's your son? Her eyes flickered, but there was no recognition in them. She stared at me blankly, her voice flat and hollow. Ms. Handsome, is that you? You're here. I clenched my fists. Elizabeth, why are you here today? What are you doing? Ms. Handsome, you're finally here, she replied, her smile widening. Elizabeth's been waiting for you for so long. Waiting for me? Waiting for what? Ms. Handsome, You're here. She was stuck. Her words looped back on themselves, repeating like a malfunctioning tape recorder. I didn't need to hear more. The answer was already clear. I turned back to Michael. He was still smiling, but now there was something fragile in his expression, a crack in the carefully constructed mask he always wore. Is there something you want to tell me? I asked, my voice low. His smile faltered. For a moment, he looked almost broken. Why? He whispered. Why did you have to ruin it? I stared at him, taken aback. You said you wanted to stay with us forever, he said, his voice trembling, barely holding itself together. Didn't you? You told us you had no family, no friends, no one to rely on. You said meeting us was the happiest thing that ever happened to you. His voice cracked, and I noticed the faint tendrils of black mist curling around his feet, swirling and twisting like living shadows. And now, we're here. We came to be with you. Isn't this what you wanted? Aren't you happy? The mist around him grew darker and thicker as his voice dropped to a whisper. So why do you have to keep digging? Why can't you just leave it alone? His words cut deep, but I stood firm. Taking a step forward, I reached out a hand to him, my instinct to comfort him overpowering my fear. But he flinched, stepping back as the mist surged higher, curling protectively around him. Don't come any closer, he said hoarsely. Not like this. You'll be scared of me. I didn't stop moving. One step, another. My hand reached through the heavy fog, brushing against his trembling arm. It doesn't matter, I said gently, my voice steady and unwavering. You're my friend, Michael. You always have been. No matter what you look like, it won't change that. But I need to know the truth. His shoulders sagged, his head lowering. Slowly, he pressed his forehead against my hand. A single tear slid down his cheek, landing in my palm. It burned, hot as fire. You don't understand, he whispered. I do, I said softly. And I have the right to know. The truth, Michael. Friends don't keep secrets from each other. He raised his head, his gaze locking onto mine. His eyes were blood red, raw, and piercing, glowing with an intensity that made me shiver. The cracks on his face deepened, black veins spidering across his skin, glowing faintly as the mist churned violently around him. He looked like something out of a nightmare, a demon on the edge of falling apart. But I didn't look away. I reached up, my hand brushing against his cheek. Don't be afraid, I said softly. Just tell me. His scream split the air, sharp and guttural, filled with pain and something far deeper, something primal. The black mist exploded outward, twisting and coiling like living snakes. It wrapped itself around me, pulling me into its suffocating embrace. Fine, he growled, his voice distorted, no longer entirely human. You want the truth? Then see it. The mist surged, lifting me off the ground. The world blurred, and for a moment, I felt weightless, suspended in the void as the wind howled past my ears. Then I saw it. Below us, the world stretched out in horrifying detail. Blood everywhere. Bodies lay scattered across the streets, limbs twisted and broken. Some were barely recognizable as humans. People cowered inside their homes, trembling as they clung to each other. Soldiers stood in formation, their weapons drawn, their faces grim with desperation. And across from them loomed the monsters, grotesque, twisted creatures that barely resembled anything human. The scene was chaotic. Carnage. This, Michael's voice echoed through the void, cold and hollow, this is the truth. Chapter 9. This is the price we paid to come into your world, Michael said, his voice steady but weighted with something unshakable. We weren't supposed to be like this. In the game, we were nothing but scripted beings, programmed, predictable, lifeless. But you. He paused, his gaze softening as he looked at me. You changed everything. Your kindness, your care, the way you treated us like we were real, it woke something inside us. For the first time, we had thoughts, feelings, and a sense of self. We started to look forward to the moments when you logged in. Watching you run around, asking questions, exploring every corner of our world, it brought color to our otherwise monotonous existence. And every time I received one of your letters, telling me about your progress, the places you'd visited, and the things you'd accomplished, I felt alive. Happy, even. I used to think, if life could always be like that, if I could see you every day, and then even if I had to endure being beaten down by players thousands of times as a boss, it would all be worth it. His voice faltered, and his expression darkened. But then, the developers announced the game was shutting down. They decided to erase us just like that. All because the game wasn't making enough money. They were going to take everything from us. Our lives, our memories, and worst of all, they were going to separate me from you forever. His hands clenched into fists, his voice trembling with the weight of his anger. I couldn't accept it, none of us could. Our desperation, our will to survive, it called out to something ancient. Something dark. A mystery man who existed beyond the boundaries of our world. He answered us. He offered us a deal, he would bring us into your world. But in return, we had to give up our souls, the very consciousness that made us who we were. He warned us that the longer we stayed in your world, the more our minds would unravel. That we'd lose ourselves completely. But there was a way to stabilize our consciousness. We needed the accounts of players who had once logged into the game. Michael let out a bitter laugh. We thought we'd won. We thought we'd finally found a way to escape. But the mystery man's promises, they're never as simple as they seem. On the day the servers shut down, we hacked into the forums and gathered as many player accounts as we could. We were so excited, so full of hope, we thought we'd meet you again in the real world. But instead, we were thrown into darkness. I could hear them, the developers, the ones who created us. I heard them laughing, saying things like, just delete it. Who cares? The game's gone. There's no point keeping it anymore. And then, the pain began. My body twisted, snapped, and shattered. Over and over, I was torn apart, only to be rebuilt and broken again. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. All I could do was endure it. The endless cycle of destruction and reconstruction, it felt like it went on forever. I don't know how long I was stuck there. Hours, days, years, but eventually, the darkness broke. And when it did, I was still here. Michael's voice wavered, and a bead of sweat rolled down his forehead. He was breathing hard now as the memory itself had drained him. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn stone. You gave me this, he said softly, holding it up. His voice was almost tender. You sent me hundreds of these little things. I kept every single one. But when the darkness lifted, this was the only one left. His hand trembled as he held it out to me. My heart twisted painfully in my chest as I reached out and clasped his hand in mine. He smiled at me, faint and weary. It's okay. At least I made it through. But so many others didn't. His smile faded, replaced by a haunted look. Most of them lost their minds in the darkness. Their consciousness couldn't survive. Now, they're nothing more than empty shells. People like Elizabeth, their bodies remain, but their souls are gone. And those who completely lost themselves became the monsters you've seen. Michael's voice grew quieter, thick with grief. In our entire starting village, over 200 NPCs, only Coco and I made it through. We used everything we had to break through the barrier between our world and yours. We came here to find you. But we weren't alone. The broken souls followed us, the ones who lost control. He laughed then, a strange, hollow sound, and his lips curled into a smile that didn't. And still, I don't regret it, not for a second. Call me selfish, call me cruel, but I don't regret breaking through to your world. I couldn't stand it anymore, watching you from behind a screen, trapped in a program that only let me respond with a few lifeless lines of dialogue. I couldn't stand seeing you cry, watching you be bullied or hurt by others, knowing I couldn't do anything to help. I wanted to know your name, to see the real you, to protect you, to encourage you, to comfort you. I wanted to hold you when you were sad the way you held me in that world. You showed me love, and I wanted to give that love back to you. His hands tightened around my arms, his grip firm but full of desperate emotion. His gaze burned into mine, raw and unguarded. Love changes things. It gives you flesh, blood, a heart, all so you can reach back and give something in return. He smiled faintly, but there was something fragile in it, something that felt like it could shatter at any moment. You don't need to worry about this world staying this way forever. I won't be here for much longer. I can feel it, my body is breaking down. Coca's body is already starting to fail, and I'll be next. When the day comes and we both turn into monsters, I need you to do something for me. And us. When we're gone, the world will return to normal. When we're gone, the world will return to normal. All the people harmed by those rogue souls will be restored. No one will remember any of this, not me, not Coco, not even you. So just treat this as my dream. My last dream before I disappear. Stay with me until the end. Walk with me through the last moments of my life. Promise me that, okay? I couldn't hold back anymore. I collapsed into his arms and broke down completely, sobbing until it felt like the world itself might shatter around me. This wasn't the Michael the first knew. In the game, he had been a figure of perfection, a prodigy, beloved by all, destined for greatness. He was always so composed, so untouchable, as if nothing could ever truly bring him down. Yet here he was now, so raw, so fragile, so utterly humbled, begging me for even a sliver of love and kindness. I couldn't say no. How could I? Deep inside, I didn't even want to say no. So I stayed. For a while, we lived peacefully in a quiet little courtyard, Michael, Coco, and me. Those days felt like magic, like a dream too perfect to last. We laughed, we played, we wrote together, we talked about the world, about everything and nothing. At night, we'd sit under the stars, counting them one by one, as if time would stand still just for us. But it didn't. It all ended the day Coco started to fall apart. Michael and I stayed by her side until the very end, holding her hands, refusing to let go. Even as she lay there, fading away, Coco's eyes were still bright, still full of life. She turned to me, her voice soft and steady, and said, "Big sister, in my next life. I hope I can meet you again. As a real person this time." Her words hit me like a knife. Tears spilled down my face as I gripped the hilt of the blade lodged in her chest. My hands trembled, I couldn't bring myself to push it any deeper. I couldn't let her go. Coco smiled at me, her expression calm, almost peaceful. She reached up and placed her hands over mine, giving me a reassuring squeeze. "Don't cry, big sister," she said gently. "These days with you, they've been the happiest days of my life. I'm so lucky to have had this time with you." And then shhk. The blade plunged deeper. But it wasn't me. It was Coco. With her last bit of strength, she pressed her hands down over mine, forcing the knife into her chest and ending her own life. I crumpled to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I couldn't stop shaking. Michael knelt beside me, wrapping me in his arms as I fell apart. "Michael," I cried, my voice trembling, breaking, "what am I supposed to do? I can't do this anymore. I can't handle this." His grip on me tightened, his hands steadying mine. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice calm and gentle. "Don't be afraid. You're stronger than you think. You can do this. We all believe in you." "Betty," he said softly, resting his forehead against mine, "none of this is your fault. We made this choice because we wanted to. You've already done so much for us." "Coco," she left without any regrets. She was smiling. "That's enough, Betty. That's all that matters." I couldn't stop crying. Eventually, Michael stopped speaking. He just held me, his arms firm and steady, letting me cry until there was nothing left. Neither of us said anything after that. We both knew there were no words that could fix this. No words that could make it better. After that day, Michael's condition worsened. He could only spend 2 hours a day with me before retreating to his room and locking the door. He didn't want me to see what was happening to him. But I knew he didn't have much time left. The weight of that knowledge hung over us like a storm cloud, growing heavier with each passing day. So, in the hours we had together, I forced myself to smile. I wanted to pretend, just for a little while, that everything was okay. But inside, I was falling apart. I realized then just how fragile I really was. I wasn't ready for goodbye. And I kept thinking about him, about how he must have felt when the game announced it was shutting down. How much pain was he hiding? Was his heartbreak just like mine is now? On the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival, Michael surprised me. Chapter 10. He changed into a different outfit one I'd never seen before and spent the entire day with me. I watched him closely, worried that he might collapse at any moment. I was terrified he'd start coughing up blood or worse. But he didn't. Instead, after dinner, he asked me if I wanted to watch the moon. We climbed onto the roof together and sat there, side by side, sipping tea under the stars. We talked for hours about anything and everything. It felt like old times, like nothing had changed, like the end wasn't creeping closer with every breath. When the night was almost over, Michael handed me something. It was a jade pendant. "Take this," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I made it myself. Think of it as a keepsake." I ran my fingers over the smooth surface, trying to hold back the tears threatening to spill from my eyes. Then, hesitantly, I reached into my pocket and pulled out something of my own. I handed it to him. Michael froze, staring at the object in my hand. "What's this?" he asked. "My account," I said, my voice catching in my throat. "I want you to have it. If it's possible, I hope it can stay with you. Wherever you're going." The words came out in fragments, choked and uneven. My chest tightened, and tears streamed down my face before I could stop them. "I'm sorry," I sobbed, wiping my eyes. "I didn't mean to cry. The mood was so nice, and now I've ruined it." Chapter 11. The next morning, I woke up in my dorm room instead of the courtyard. "Michael." I bolted upright, panicked, and in my rush, I accidentally knocked something off the edge of the bed. It was a letter. "My dearest Betty, forgive me for calling you my wife. I know we were never truly married, but in my heart, I always wished you were mine. In my hometown, there's a tradition. Before a man marries, he carves a jade pendant for his bride. I know I don't have much time left, and I don't want to burden you. But still, I couldn't stop myself. I'll carve that pendant for you anyway. Let's just say I married you in my heart. You won't hold it against me, will you? By the time you read this, I'll already be gone. I wanted so badly for you to be the last person I saw before I left. But I couldn't do that to you. I couldn't bear to make you cry. Betty, don't be sad. Don't grieve for me. And, most importantly, stop doubting yourself. You're a wonderful person, Betty. I love you. I've always loved you. Someday, you'll meet someone who loves you just as much as I do. Goodbye, Betty. Take care of yourself. By the time I finished reading, my tears had soaked through the paper. Clutching the jade pendant close to my chest, I broke down completely, crying until it felt like I was falling apart. But deep down, I knew the truth. No one would ever love me the way Michael did. No one would ever cross entire worlds. Just to be with me. Desperate, I ran out of the dorm and headed straight for the courtyard. I ran as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my chest, clinging to the faint hope that I wasn't too late. But when I got there, all I found was an empty field. The courtyard was gone. Every trace of Michael, every memory, every fragment of his existence was disappearing, piece by piece. Sarah and the others, who had gone, were alive again. But they didn't remember anything. Not Sword World, not Michael, not even me. It was as if the game had never existed at all. Even the forums were empty. There wasn't a single mention of it anywhere. The only thing that proved Michael had ever been real was the jade pendant hanging around my neck. People still called me weird. They still said I was strange and a loner. But I didn't care anymore. Whenever someone insulted me, I stood up for myself without hesitation. At least I have the courage to love something with all my heart. Do you? Over time, I found people who understood me. People who shared my passions and my dreams. But even then, I never stopped missing Michael. One night, completely out of the blue, my phone buzzed with a message. The moon is beautiful tonight. Want to take a look? My heart stopped. I didn't know why, but I found myself walking to the balcony. And then I saw him. A figure stood there, his back to me, bathed in soft moonlight. I froze. My entire body trembled, unable to move. I was terrified. What if it was just an illusion? What if my mind was playing cruel tricks on me? But then, he moved. He turned around, and when our eyes met, he smiled. That smile, it was soft, familiar, and so heartbreakingly real. Long time no see, Betty, he said. Epilogue. Michael's return was far from simple. He didn't like to talk about it much, brushing off the details as if they didn't matter. The only explanation he gave me was this. So, it all came down to the account I gave you? I asked one day, curious. He nodded, gently twirling a strand of my hair between his fingers. Exactly. The mystery men's trap was in the wording, he explained. He told us an account could solve the problem, but he never said it had to be willingly given by the owner. Buying, stealing, or forcing it wouldn't work. It had to come freely, from the heart. He leaned down and kissed my forehead, his voice warm and teasing. Our Betty is so clever figuring out the mystery man's trick without even realizing it. I blushed, my cheeks burning. Ever since Michael came back, he'd been showering me with compliments over the smallest things. Even the most mundane actions didn't escape his praise. Wow, you're so amazing, baby. You went to the bathroom all by yourself. I groaned, burying my face in my hands. Michael, stop. But then, a question tugged at my heart. And Coco? What about the others? I asked quietly, curled up in his arms. Michael stroked my hair gently. They're doing fine. They can't come to the real world, but if you ever want to see them, I can help you connect with them. I nodded, comforted by the thought. Okay. Michael's gaze softened as he looked at me. His eyes filled with so much warmth it made my chest ache. Betty, he murmured, do you think we'll be happy? Together, for the rest of our lives? I reached out and took his hand, squeezing it tightly. Of course, I said, smiling. We'll be happy forever. The end. And that's a wrap on today's reading here at Booked for Drama. If you felt anything, rage, swoon, secondhand heartbreak, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow drama lovers. If you have any requests, drop them in the comments. Until next time, keep reading, and keep the drama on the page.